Our website has been updated to state that um, in the past we were meeting monthly. We did a lot of work in all of those months. We took a summer, much needed break. We accumulated lots of information that we will need to collectively do some work on. And so today that brings us to post-general election. I don't think the city has certified yet, but we know what the outcome is with respect to our successful candidates for moving forward for the um, general election and those that did not. And so
Did you
with,
notice we have certified the election
oh, you did. When did you?
on Wednesday,
Today? Tomorrow?
Last.
Last
last
month.
Wednesday,
Oh, because when I
before
met
the
with the
holiday.
state, they said you had not. Okay. So the state still hasn't
Yeah,
updated their
the
website.
state, the state, the, yeah, the state is not certified, but Baltimore City is certified.
Okay, okay. Um, Alan said you, yeah, that makes sense. You had not when I spoke with Alan last. Okay, so again, thank you, Charlie. Charlie made some edits. I really like them. And you tell me, would you like me to do the director's report portion or would you do
Yes, please.
that? Okay. So uh, the director, the director's report, at the end of the primary election, we had one candidate move forward. I think most of us knew that, who successfully maneuvered the Fair Election Public Funds. That's Zach Blanchard. He was successful, moved on to the general election. He has been very, very good to work with. Zach has recently informed the director's office that he, as you know, he was successful. He won the general election. He does not have any unspent funds to return, and he anticipates that he will meet the 30-day deadline after certification to close out his account, which he's in the process of reconciling with. And I know he's been in touch with uh, Allen at the state. Um, then we have Theroux, who was not successful in the primary. However, he has also been very compliant and in the process of closing out his campaign account. He did return nearly $300,000. The city did receive it. It's been accounted for, and the budget department has accounted for it in that account. Shannon Sneed, likewise, was unsuccessful. However, she has been trying to close her account for some time now. There is some sort of glitch that she is working with Alan and the state, not Shannon Sneed's fault on the state side with MD Chris, and they're in the process of trying to resolve what is the impasse on her closing out her account, something with linking expenses that Alan said their tech side is trying to resolve. Stephen Johnson, um, he's our outlier at this point. I have been unsuccessful except on one occasion just recently speaking with Stephen. Stephen expressed that he knows that he has some homework to do. He said he had not been well. Um, he said that he would be communicating soon, um, but that soon has not uh, translated. Unfortunately, in the time that has lapsed, and my attempts to communicate with him, the state has attempted to communicate with him. We've offered virtual meetings, virtual training, virtual assistance to no end. At this point, the state has decided to review his records and request those records from him since I have been unsuccessful. As of last week, when I spoke with Alan Norfleet at the state, he was still waiting for feedback as to what the next steps forward should be um, for us, as well as what the state would like to do. So far, the only step that I know the state will certainly take is to subpoena his records. Since I let's see. So were you able to open it, Charlie, or no? I can't hear you. Let's see if I can get it. Hold on. Let's see. I think I got it. So there you go, Sam. So, um, very elementary, I think. I just wanted Charlie to have a footprint to go by when I figured out how to do this on my end. So, how did you learn about the Baltimore City Fair Election Fund? Did you find the participation process easy? Will you or encourage others to participate in the Baltimore City Election Fund financing program? Does the current legislation, city council bill, etc., and administration achieve greater participation and fairness for individuals interested in running for city public office? If no, what particular changes would you recommend? And then you can also append or create more options. So that's the general format. You can do the survey in different formats. You can offer as many options as you like, meaning all or all of the above, or select two. So there are lots of different formats, but this is just to sort of tickle what we might want to um, ask for a response as a first year participant in the program, as to what, and compare that to what
The,
others are doing.
And
the
would
one
we be
question
asking? Oh, go ahead, Sam.
is this, so it seems like we've got a couple different sort of like stakeholder groups here. Like there's the candidates, and then there are like treasurers who like whoever did their compliance for them. And then there's the donors. And I guess those three groups, particularly the like there's a very small number of candidates and treasurers who we should probably get more in-depth feedback from, and then a much larger group of donors who have like a different set of feedback. And then I guess there's like all the people who didn't participate in the program, which is like kind of a more amorphous and obviously we don't have the resources to go through all of this, but I guess depending on what our goals are as a commission, I can imagine us going a couple different ways with this survey.
So do we want to only have one survey then? Maybe an internal or a for campaigns, meaning candidates and staff and campaigns that participated at any point in the process. And then for donors, and then donors and or like the public.
I guess I'm a little unclear what our goals are here. Like, are our goals to give operational feedback to like the State Board of Elections on whether like the compliance system is like easy to use? Is our goal to give feedback to the city council on whether Baltimoreans consider this to be like a good use of several million taxpayer dollars a year? Is our goal to learn generally about whether people have good experiences with public financing? Like, I guess like what the public thinks about it. I think depending on what we want, we would do different.
I
We would
think
have different research strategies.
I think the way the code describes it, it is the latter. But I'm looking for the specific language that says how it, keep talking and I'll look for this. I think you did a good job of pointing out the stakeholders, that donors and the public might have a different experience or different information to share than candidates and their staff. So I think you're correct that it
I guess
that
I'm also kind of
more than one.
who's like responsible for improving this program based on feedback? Like, is that us as a commission? Is it city staff like Nadine? Is it the state? Like obviously we need to have like a good system for like hearing from the people about how it's going and then making it better. But I'm kind of unclear if that's like
I
our
think
job
it's,
or not. If it's our job, I definitely want to do a good
I
job.
think it's the
I also don't
commission,
want to
but
but
I'm in it to win it.
I think that I have the uh, well, I think well, in term, okay, so after we receive, we review, then the recommendations. So based on the review conducted under this section, the commission may recommend to the mayor and city council adjustments to the number. Is this answering the question? If I'll keep, okay. The commission may recommend to the mayor and city council, 1, adjustments to the number and value of qualified small dollar contributions, blah, 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 adjustments regarding the money and any other legislative changes. Which is pretty vague, I guess, than what the mayor and city council
Okay.
wants that information.
Here's the code. It's in section 11, subsection 11-12A. It says, after the general election for each office, a commission must conduct a comprehensive review of the financing program under this subtitle, including the maximum and minimum amounts of qualified donor contributions, number and value of qualified small donor contributions a candidate is required to obtain, amount of disbursements a candidate may receive, the overall satisfaction of participating candidates and the public with the program. So I think that addresses that. And then analysis, recommendation, and creation of a plan to the mayor to reduce racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, and geographic disparities regarding access to matching funds by participating candidates and other matters relating to financing of campaigns. So I think this is the public. How are we, one way of engaging the public?
Are we able to like spend any of the money on this? Like that's like a pretty serious research project that we're supposed to do that like seems like it would take some resources to do with any kind of like sort of serious.
That's a good question.
Like we have $1.3 million. Like it might be worthwhile to spend some of that on evaluation. If that would then help us, for example, better predict how much money we're going to need in the future and make that case to city council, or better predict, particularly if we make changes to access that make people more likely to use it based on feedback, that would mean that we need more money in the program, for example. So
my understanding is that we cannot spend, the fund is only to be given out to candidates. We can check with Hillary to see, and that might be a change that we request, that we get we are allowed to take some money out of the fund to do the education that because we're charged with education. So you raise a very valid issue is that we are tasked with educating the public and producing materials, but we do not have a line item budget. And therefore, I think we need some language in an amendment to the code that would either allot us a portion of money from this fund to spend on education or identify some other source of funds to do that outreach, including gathering this data. And hi, John.
Well, just as in the interest of moving us forward, Charlie, do you want to maybe just connect offline and we can come back to the group with some options on this? I have some thoughts, but I don't want to belabor group time at 5:45 on a dark night.
Okay.
Is it possible to find out how other jurisdictions in the state are capturing data and through what method? I mean, obviously, like SurveyMonkey probably isn't it, but how are they working with funds where they contracted with someone to create an issue and capture information on some kind of survey instrument? Maybe I'm just guessing, I don't know, maybe is it a community college? I'm thinking, Binya Jacob France Institute here in Baltimore might be an option if we have money to dedicate to paying for something more formalized, but I just don't have a sense.
That's an excellent suggestion, Tracy. I'm writing it down, and we can do some outreach to them to try to find out. Actually, John, do you know offhand, based on your?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have anything specific in the legislation in Howard County. We did have to, produce reports like this, but I don't think we specifically had a line that required us to go out to the public to survey them. So, and I'm pretty sure they haven't spent any money outsourcing any survey information if they've done it. Yeah.
I mean, maybe the piece about equity is unique to our legislation, I'm guessing. So, that would make sense, John.
Yeah.
But if we do have to come up with recommendations with that kind of eye, certainly what that frame looks like, it might be helpful to have some kind of academic or more professional survey advice in terms of how to craft a question or two that would specifically speak to that. Unless or even an open-ended question would be, might be enough, but
yeah, and it might be that our friends at Common Cause can reach out to the national network there, even go beyond Maryland and see if other jurisdictions around the country are doing more substantive survey, analytical based surveys, and if they have, what they've done and what their questions use. So I think there's probably a lot of willingness to share in this fashion. So it might be worth checking with them if there's something quick they can turn around.
Or this professor that we were talking about earlier, I don't recall his name now, but if he's working with other cities, it's likely that the issue of equity could have come up somewhere else as well.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah, Nick, I don't think he's a professor. Actually, I think he worked for one of the advocacy organizations for a long time that helped set up these programs in a lot of cities, and now they're so he was looking for an academic partner, which is how he ended up coming to my center at University of Maryland. Which, I mean, I could ask, I mean, we do a lot of work on public opinion. And I could ask some of our faculty if they would engage. Although I agree that the UB option is closer to home and easier in some ways. But yeah, I mean, I didn't realize the charter was so specific about it and so wide ranging. Like the requirement to get input from people who didn't participate in the program and get like a sense of the whole city's response is a lot more difficult than just interviewing 6 candidates and seeing if they thought the website worked well, which we should definitely like I do think we should do that.
Low hanging fruit, right? Like, did it work?
We should definitely do that also, but
Right.
but yeah, well, I guess but yeah, Nick would definitely know, and I can follow up with him about that. And I think we might have more. I think to John's point, I would be surprised if other cities have this kind of like, this is a very robust research sort of like charge here. So there might be, we might be in a position to actually develop what other people would want to use, given that our charter requires it and other cities don't.
I think I just sent a message to Common Cause Maryland to see if they could jump on this call, but B, just to connect with them on some of the questions that you all had. I also think that we have a resource in former Councilman Christopher Burnett, and engaging him in like what were the original thoughts behind including that information, and maybe he had some specific thinking about how this was to happen. So that might lead us in that direction. Okay, so we're gonna pause here. We'll put a pause on this and come back and report on this. I wrote down that Sam and Charlie are going to connect on it. Anybody else who's interested in working on in a subgroup to work on this survey and collection of this public perception, let me know.
I'm interested, Charlie.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can we move on to the next item? Whatever's on your agenda.
We want to then return to the top and check off approval of June minutes.
Okay, we are talking about the June minutes, which was our in-person meeting, or our dual, our in-person and virtual meeting. Do we have any amendments to the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes from the June meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, it looks like Anwar, is that, can you give us a thumbs up so we can have a visual vote? Thank. Okay.
Okay, so with that, we are done that and that. We reviewed the balance. Maybe we'll have a shot. We're down to Maryland State Board of Elections next commission briefing. The reason I posted that there have been some additional staffing with Alan over at the state. So once the dust settles, I'm sure it'll be sometime early in 2025, and we can determine a date, he and I, and then maybe now that the general election is over and once the housekeeping is done with the state, we may have a shot of having Jared and new staff members meet with us and give us a briefing. And I think that would really be beneficial going forward in helping us formulate some of the issues that were unearthed in this our first process, our first cycle. And so with that, Charlie, we're down to you.
Before you go, before you end, Nadine, there were earlier in the fall, there was going to be a hearing, or we were notified of a hearing on the Fair Election Fund, a council hearing on the Fair Election Fund. Did that happen? Did they contact you?
It did not, and it's at the very end of our internal agenda.
Oh,
I
okay.
spoke with Hillary at length. I also did some best practice outreach with Montgomery County on unspent funds, problems they may have encountered with a particular candidate, which was very helpful. That person was recommended to me by Alan from the state. We have a very healthy relationship. To grow now, he's actually a resource. And if you don't mind, I will also reach out to him about accumulation of data in Montgomery County. That's a much bigger pocket than Baltimore City, so I made a note to do that. And so, no, Hillary advised, she gave me the history of how these hearings are called. Usually when you're coming to the end of a term, they basically throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. So anything that could possibly become an issue, they listed. Anything that may have been a note during the budget hearings, and unspent funds was one of those occurrences. I spoke during the budget hearing season about unspent funds on a very high level. When the funds are expected to be returned from a winning candidate, losing candidate, and how those funds are collected. And so this would have been, and still could be in the next term, just a brief presentation from what I understand on my part. And then I did develop in the meantime, and I can forward that to the commission, an SOP as to what steps I have taken that a candidate should follow in terms of determining the amount of unspent funds, how they're spent, who they're to be sent to by address and things of that nature. So the hearing is still to be determined. It may be called, it may not ever be called.
Okay.
Hillary says it's really just up to the pleasure of the city council, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, now we have a new council, so that particular thing, they have to start again.
Correct.
So we'll see. But
Yes.
It looks like what it tells us is that council person Porter is going to be seems like the person who's going to take up this issue.
Okay.
I'm guessing. So it might have been like
Yeah, I mean, I think also council member Blanchard will be willing to work with us, make improvements, and based on his own experience, I'm sure he has some things he would like to change. So it might be worth a conversation to make sure that we're aligned with maybe changes that he has in mind. I don't know for sure he has any. I'm just saying, I know he had a specific experience, so and ultimately a good one. But
excellent. Thank you, Nadine. I just wanted to. That's been going in the back of my mind. Like, wait, what happened to that hearing?
Oh, mine too. I was I have a whole binder ready to walk up to the podium. And I'll dust it off and keep refreshing in case they just say, you know, we need to see you tomorrow. So I plan to be ready.
Well, with that said, it's we have to dot our I's and cross our T's so that, you know, there is at some point going to be an oversight hearing on this fund, and so that we're ready for it and we have all the stuff that we need to do.
I'm not
Which
going
brings
there without you.
which brings us to the couple things that I have in my report. The three things that we are or the few things that we are tasked with is we have to issue this post-election report. And we have now the spreadsheet that has like what was spent and how it was spent, and we can actually talk about and I think it's just synthesizing the data, what kind of money came in. We know from SBE, like who were $0 to $20 donors and who were $100 donors. So we can, in our report, talk about that, and we can talk about the number of people who participated and the number of candidates. And but that report has to be issued by the 30th or 31st of this year. So in the next 28 days. And I had hoped to take a stab at it. I haven't yet taken on that chore. But I'll be working with Nadine, and of course the commission will have to review it and, you know, approve it before we can send it out. But that was the report as spelled out by the code, is that we have to suggest whether the funding amounts were the amounts that we give to candidates, if that we felt like that was a good, like, was the caps, the maximums, because Shannon maxed out, Zach maxed out. I think those are the only two that maxed out. That we're required to do, whether we need to make any changes to that. Any of our recommendations for changes to the program or changes to the law should be included in this report. So that's the one thing. So I'll be working on that with Nadine, and anybody who's interested to be in part of crafting that should let us know. The second document that we are responsible for is this recommendation for FY 2026 funding. We missed our deadline for 2025. We knew that they weren't going to put in anything. Using the numbers that we have from our spreadsheet, which is in the minutes that Nadine sent around, I amended this draft of the recommendation letter that we discussed in June. And in that, we say that we dispersed just over $560,000 from the fund, and that we close with 1.16 million. Our estimate from June of this year was that in 2028, we are probably looking at 1 mayoral candidate, 2 council president candidates, or a council president and a comptroller candidate, in addition to 4 council candidates. And that total comes up to, can you go back to that document, Nadine, the document before the draft letter? That our estimate was in June that we would need 2.75 million in the fund to max out for all of those candidates. And so if we divide that sum by 4, which would include a contribution for the in 2028 for the FY 2029 budget, just under $400,000, $397,185. And basically I just took what we have, the 275,000 minus our minus the 1.16, that difference, and divided it by 4 to say, can we put in, $400,000 a year? John, I see your hand up.
Yeah. I was just wondering, the math seems sound. It's 2 questions. One is, do we want to divide it by 3 so all the money is in the bank before the campaign season starts, and the off chance there's something else that comes up that might convince people to do otherwise? That's one, just throwing that out for consideration of the commission. The second thing was, in the next cycle in 28, are the term limits kicking in so that
Yes.
There'll be more? So how many of the council members are now limited? I mean, Blanchard's the only one that is not, or no, and then Porter.
I honestly don't know how the current council structure gets impacted by that.
Right. Because there was no phasing in of, I mean, the
Right.
thing that when it was a wipe the slate clean sort of thing.
I'll be honest, is like I sat down with my councilman and he couldn't explain it to me. Like that the way the provision is written, and I don't think they've come back to shape it.
Okay.
And I don't know if they can. It's a charter amendment. I don't know how you shape a charter amendment.
Through another charter amendment.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure, but I think
Yeah.
this might be something that we, I don't know, just to better understand what we're looking at in the future, might want to sit down with Hillary to say, okay, Hillary, you read this charter amendment and tell us which of the council people, except for the brand new ones, like we know Zach and Mark Parker and Paris won't be, and Jermaine won't be impacted. That's 4.
Right.
But I'm not
So
sure about the others who came in 2018.
Right.
No, 2020, like how they're impacted by it, or even like the council president who just served 2 terms as a council person is now serving as council president, whether that person is allowed to move on to another.
Yeah, that I think is that he would be able to do 2 terms in the president's seat, but yeah, it still would be worthy, like you're saying, getting the confirmation. And then depending on when that happens, remind me again, the letters due also at the end of the month. Sorry, I'm pointing at my screen.
Yes. Well, yes, the letters due by the it says by January 1st.
Okay, so because then when I say if we can't get much more clarification on the potential impact of how many council members might not be able to run again, I think that we would put a provision in this letter that says potentially maybe 8 candidates, or give a range of candidates for council, right? Because we're assuming, if there are definitely open seats, that is likely to draw a lot more folks into the program, right?
Mhm.
So those are all my recommendations around that. But I think that's the only key thing about that might change the number is just the number of potential council candidates, and then my only other thought or for conversation is whether or not we want to go for dividing it by 3, so it's fully funded with the 828 budget, which would be July of 27.
Does anyone else have I see something in the chat. Does anyone else have thoughts on 3 years versus 4?
I think knowing that we have the funds in advance of the beginning of the calendar year, so doing the 3 years makes sense to me. There's less uncertainty that way. We won't be wondering what happens in that 4th year. We'd be pretty confident about what we have going forward. So I would agree with John on dividing by 3.
Okay.
Yeah, Tracy, you bring up a key point there, and that is that there's confidence in the system, right, in advance of people declaring their candidacy, right? So we want them to feel like there's no risk, no additional risk, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll know, so we won't be stressed about we'll figure out what the council would do in that 4th year as well.
Great point.
My rationale for going with the 4 years was that we already knew because of a budget crunch, we didn't get anything in 25 for FY25. We're going into FY26 in a deficit. And so if we asked for $700,000, we're unlikely to get it. That was my thinking for asking for a smaller amount. To me, $400,000 seems like, that's chump change. But I don't want us to be stuck on that, because one of the things we can also do in our report is to suggest dedicated funding sources to fund the program. And it was always the intention. In fact, I believe the initial drafts of the legislation actually identified a funding source so that we wouldn't ever have to take money out of the general fund. And it was in order to get the legislation passed. My understanding is that in order to get the legislation passed, they removed that language of a dedicated funding source. But we are in fact charged in the code with identifying a dedicated funding source. So if we can do that, then John, then I think we should go ahead, and I'm in agreement that we should go ahead and ask for 3 years of funding. But I think we follow this up with a recommendation for dedicated funding source so that we're not pulling from the general fund.
And is that so? That's, I remember that weird piece of the legislation. So that's, we're just to give them a recommendation. We're not, and then will they have to amend the law to include the funding? So they would have to.
So if we identified a funding source, say, I don't know, a tax on a penny from the parking meters, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then we could say, like, we believe that this gap, this amount of $1 point whatever million, $1.1 million could be 1.6 million, that we could realize this. Here's this dedicated source of funding. We recommend having these funds come from this pot of money. We can't do anything about it. All we can do is make a recommendation, and then the mayor and/or city council can take it from there. Would have to take it from there.
Yeah. I think, it is. It's similar to Howard County. We have to identify it specifically. They would have to put it in the legislation, but That's all. Also, if we're going to go out to Common Cause and again have them tap their national network of jurisdictions who are doing this, might be, or they might even have it readily available, like the various sources that other jurisdictions are using. We could not get that done in Howard County. We only could get a provision that people could contribute to it and create a mechanism for them to donate money. I think in our first year we got $200 contributions.
Yeah, we have the same mechanism. So
Right.
Tracy, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just about to ask what Howard County suggested, and even if we did, make sure that we had like the donation provision, I don't know, maybe people are feeling a certain way about democracy right now. Maybe it's a good opportunity so would those funds like go through the civic fund as the mechanism for collection?
It
If
depends.
it's a private donation, maybe, I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's just, something that maybe we could consider, that they could make the donation through the civic fund and.
Right now, my understanding is it's set up that that you can accept contributions, that the fund can accept contributions directly. I don't know what that specific mechanism is. It's probably in the code. But and it might be that it goes to the civic fund. And that was one of the recommendations when we were talking about making contributions to candidates, that instead of commissioners making contributions to candidates, that we instead make the contribution to the fund itself. But that we would need, in addition to that, to identify whatever this revenue source was. And I think we should probably talk to either former Councilman Burnett or the Emily Starr, who was, also played a key role in drafting the legislation. And I'm happy to reach out to both of them.
Yeah, I was kind of, think about like the dedicated funding. Well, it's a great idea. I know typically they're hesitant to do things like that. They're, with budget constraints, but certainly if we can maybe find two options, if, they consider suggesting, maybe that would help. I don't know.
Okay, we'll look into that. But so for my understanding is we would like to go from that, just change the numbers from 4 years of funding to 3 years of funding to try to reach that 275, but also that we should seek some clarity on in the next couple of weeks, seek clarity on the impact of the term limits on how many open seats that there would be, because that's likely to impact how many people we see. So we'll put a pin in this. We'll come back to you with a new draft and whatever additional information that we have for this particular recommendation, and then try to, if we could get your when we send it out, if we could get your comments, feedback, and then approval by the end of the year, so that we can get it out and meet our requirements, our obligations.
Yeah. Just real quick, did a quick search, and the only thing that wasn't a general fund or general tax, a portion of the general tax, was Seattle is taking a portion of the property tax and dedicating it. So
I believe that initially it was like a percentage of the transfer tax. So as we are building these, Harbor East and that we would take a portion of that to put into this, but again, I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah,
I don't even know that they'll be acceptable. All we can do is recommend, and maybe there's some other revenue sources that we can
yeah.
try to tap
And
into.
Nadine, is there an easily accessible sheet, source that can just give us all the different tax funds or revenue sources for the city, just in terms of whole numbers? Because then maybe we can just look at ones that seem pretty big and to say 0.5% of this would fund us and maybe not be missed, sort of thing.
Yes, it's public record, but it comes out of
Yeah,
the preliminary and budget book, but I can get a digital copy and send it.
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm sorry for being lazy.
No worries.
I know I can hunt and find it, but yeah, that just might be, at least if we're making the recommendation, we go in and we can at least just say, a small percentage of this will take care of us for years. So great.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, so next thing is guidelines for wait a minute. Okay, yeah, funding recommendations, proposed guidelines for commissioners ethics. I'm sorry. How a code of conduct for us. You all may remember I sent this document out. We talked about it in June. I don't know if anyone has had the chance to review it or has. John, I know, had some questions. And if you open the document, I believe his
I think there was only one comment in there.
Okay.
Yeah, is it on the it was on the version I opened up.
I can read it. You said, do we need a statement as to when this takes effect? Do we want to put something at the end that says that we considered, the FEF Commission considered this code of conduct and adopted
Right.
them on the state?
Yeah, no, that it was something sort of logistical and not substantive. So
Okay.
yeah, because I think substantively we hit all the key points.
Okay. That I just put at the top that it would go into effect on January 1st. Oh, this is an older version. I think the newer version that's in your email has has it going
Yeah, it
into
has a date on
effect
it.
January 1st. But I thought that there was another question there, which was one thing I realized in just having the discussion we just had. Tracy raised the point about making contributions to the fund. I don't think we talk about that in this, but I don't know if we need to revisit that. It basically says if you give money to a candidate that's participating in the fund, then you cannot participate in any approval of or any votes that happen regarding that particular campaign, but does not prohibit commissioners from making contributions to campaigns. Oh, thank you. Is that the only?
To your point though, Charlie, it might be just worth calling that out. That contributions to candidates. Yeah, so I don't know if we want to add a section or just yeah, I'm good with that. Not having anything in there about that, because I think that would be sort of obvious that it'd be okay for us to do that.
Okay. Does anyone else have thoughts, comments, concerns?
Just a question. I was trying to look at the Word version of the document, and I think in the disclosure section, I think there's an asterisk about disclosure.
Yes.
And is there, and I don't
That's
think I saw at the bottom, like what that means or how we want to handle that.
Thank you. That asterisk, because this was the other thing that John, you raised, is that, or maybe Tracy, it was you, is what is the mechanism for disclosure? It says we have to disclose, but it doesn't say how we make that disclosure. Whether it's a form, is it a letter? And so that's why the asterisk was there. Thank you. That's part that is really, I wanted to bring it back to this group.
I mean, I wouldn't want to make it super burdensome with like a form, but maybe a copy of like the acknowledgement, after the donation is made or
Mhm.
donations are made, sent to, I mean, I don't want to put everybody's business out there in that kind of detail. So maybe the documentation goes to Nadine, but just a general notification to the rest of the commission that one of the commissioners, like I made a donation to whoever's running in District 7, because that's where I live, for council or something. Maybe that could be enough instead of creating and having to get somebody to jump through another hoop to fill out another form. Maybe that might be, or maybe you guys have similar experience other places where we could draw from that. But to me, that might be enough.
Like just a letter that says, I made a contribution to XYZ candidates, and here's a copy of the donation acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Mm.
Anyone else has?
That works.
Think we need more?
My concern with that would be, I know that campaigns are required to provide an acknowledgement, but if they do not, then how would we prove that? Like if I make a contribution to a campaign and I don't receive an acknowledgement, which isn't on me.
Yeah, I think
It would
the
also
seed-
show up on the report we get, right? Like if they submit for a match, potentially. But yeah, you're right. Like,
Well, but
I don't know.
are
But
we
you're right.
I thought we were talking about any contribution.
You're right.
No,
That's why I stopped myself.
And right, they should also, but that's also on the campaign to file correctly, whether
Yeah.
with our fund or not.
I
The way
thought
we
this
handle
was
this for the
about,
city,
go ahead.
I say, the way we handle this for the city board of elections is it's honor system. You're supposed to disclose at the next meeting. I include it in the meeting minutes, and that's available for the public to review if they want, and that's it.
That
We don't do receipts. We don't do
Okay.
whatever.
Did you disclose the amount and the candidate, or just that you made a contribution to a candidate?
Sometimes people include the amount. I don't think we have a policy on that.
Is there a time frame, Sam, in which you have to, because I don't think we included that.
It's the generally accepted practice is at the next meeting.
Okay. Well, considering that we're only required to meet 4 times a year, I guess before the next meeting, we could say before the next meeting, because we probably wouldn't be taking a vote on anything prior to the next meeting.
except sometimes we do take email votes.
Okay. So other language proposed?
I just I just don't know that that's necessary. Like I don't know that people I don't know that people are like. I get that theoretically it could be a problem, but I think if we're disclosing and it's in public minutes, that's sufficient.
Okay.
That is true, it would be in public minutes.
Yeah, I would agree on that for a couple of reasons. One is, people really paying attention, they can get the reports from the candidates directly, once they're filed. So if there's and the time at which we would be maybe giving contributions is probably also a period in which we're meeting more frequently. In any event, because we're in the midst of a campaign. So I think what Sam is suggesting, going the simplest route makes sense. Disclose it.
Okay.
Public meetings.
What if we say that we disclose by letting the director know before the next meeting or before the next vote? Because sometimes, as Paris said, we do votes
Right.
by, digital votes. Are people okay with that, adding that language to this disclosure section?
Yeah, I think that works. Yeah, because we're, particularly if a campaign is requesting a disbursement and somebody's given money to that campaign, then they have to recuse themselves. So yeah, makes sense.
So that we have this on the record, because this is our minutes. Can I just go through the list and then everybody say yes? Or
Are we saying yes to?
Okay, to accepting that language.
Yes.
Okay.
And accepting the code of conduct, the whole language?
Yeah, that language to the code of conduct. Let's vote on that language and then let's vote on the code of conduct.
I have another comment before we do that
Okay.
about the different section.
Okay.
For the electioneering section, I think we do need to be more specific with serving on an electoral campaign committee because of the way that the committees are set up.
Okay.
Can I actually recommend that do we need to do this by January 1st? I feel like we're talking about a lot of changes to the language right now that we should probably write and then look at again.
It doesn't need to be by January 1st, but to know that once, like in an off season, we don't have to meet again for a year.
Mhm.
I mean, 6 months, right? And we started talking about this before June.
Okay.
So we've had this language has been with us since our meeting in June. Do we really need to? My concern is we've already been looking at it for 6 months and extending it beyond, to beyond January isn't like, if nobody's looked at it in 6 months, they're not going to look at it in the next 6 weeks. So
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. I read the electioneering section and I worry that it's not clear what type of committee you could be serving on, or if we should just say a blanket statement of may not serve on an electoral campaign committee, period.
what other committees are you
So it
thinking?
says seeking office in Baltimore City. So the way that there's the, you can have a campaign committee open while not seeking an office in Baltimore City. You can have a statewide, a gubernatorial or presidential, the two cycles, the two cycles, but I think we should be clearer in the language and,
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't see a conflict I personally don't see a conflict if you're serving on somebody's gubernatorial or or they're congressional because the commission doesn't have anything to do with those
Right.
committees. It's only the committee that we literally oversee. But this actually doesn't say specifically.
Well, just because a
for
committee
public
can
financing.
change. So one can have a committee that at some point is seeking office in Baltimore City or later seeks office in Baltimore City. Could you have been on it? I guess we would we would deal with it when it happens.
Well, you can't change your committee and seek public funding. You would have to close that
Mhm.
committee to seek public
Right.
funding. So this doesn't say public funding, and that's a conversation. Okay. Can we look at, Paris, will you take a look at this and like do a proposal of what you think this should say, and then we can vote on this by email? Does everybody agree to vote, to actually respond and vote by email? Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I
Yes.
think if we can, move forward on the other question of disclosure tonight to get that out of the way and just have the one question about figuring out this electioneering piece. Just listening to the conversation, I did have a question about like, does our host committees covered under electoral campaign committees?
Right.
So maybe Paris, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but maybe if there's some just way to clarify that, because I would guess we wouldn't want to be lending our name to a host committee for a fundraiser either,
Right.
for a city candidate. But yeah, I mean, to move forward, at least an agreement on the pieces we can move forward on with a vote tonight, I think that would just keep us from continuing to wordsmith the whole document. Just with
So how
the
don't we-
with the one section that's at question right now, we can do that by email. That's
Okay,
just recommending, Madam Chair, not
thank you.
for your
No,
consideration.
I think that is a really good point. And the other point is, I think we talked about this, but I'm raising this for clarity. We talked about running for office in Baltimore City because if we served on, say, Eric Costello's campaign committee and his challenger was using public financing, we might be swayed to vote one way or the other about. Okay, so I think you may raise an important point, Tracy, about host committees, and Paris, if you want to take
Yeah.
that into consideration.
I'll look at the electioneering section and the contributions to candidates running for city office sections.
Okay. Excellent.
Also,
Thank you.
This doesn't mention, I'm just thinking about this now. Can a member of this commission run for office themselves? Because you can be a candidate and not be serving on an electoral campaign committee. Do we want to include that or not?
Commissioners.
Is that not prescribed in the enabling legislation about the commission? It's not, it doesn't say that cannot be a candidate for public office in the city.
I think you can't. I don't think it is. Let me search.
I don't think it. Oh no. I'm looking at
If not, then yes, we should say, commissioner would need to, I don't know, either resign or recuse themselves, or suspend their participation for the duration of that campaign. I mean, it's.
And would we want that to be any public office? or a pub, or a,
I think it has
Office.
to be both. I think it's limited to Baltimore City.
Yeah.
Or do we want to say, I mean, like school board, you could run for school board. School board isn't covered by the fair
No, but it has-
election.
But
Yeah,
then
I
can
mean, you might want to
for
just say the
anything?
office is not you cannot serve on the commission if running for an office that's covered by the commission, so,
Basically, the 4 positions. You can run for delegate, you can run for.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we all agree on that? Because I can add that into the language as well and send around that draft.
Yeah, the code does not address whether or not a commissioner can run for office. I mean, it's your right, your First Amendment right.
yeah, it's just, it's,
But I think that, it falls under disclosure and recusal. Thank you, Paris.
Yeah. I will, I guess, Madam Chair, could you email me the language that we are agreeing on for the whatever edits we're making to the disclosure and recusal section that we've discussed? And I can incorporate them into a document that I'll then send around.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. What's the next? There's another document, Nadine. What's the next document we're required to do? And then, wait, I think this is it. We're almost done, folks.
It's okay. We've had like 5 months off, so we can we're here. Let's do the meeting.
Okay, is that it? Code of conduct? Yeah, I think, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, if we go back to I don't see, oh, here's my agenda. Guidelines. Oh, okay. I think that's it.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah, then there's one more section that I think John sent around today. If anyone got a chance to look at it, and that is the regulations.
I had it up.
The potential changes to legislation.
Let me find it.
Yeah. We don't have to have this done by, because I'm looking at the time, it's 6:30. We scheduled this from 5 to 6:30. We don't have to have the regulations done by the end of the year, although it would probably be a good idea if there's anything we want to include in our report to have them included. So, John, do you want to, while Nadine is pulling up?
Yeah, no, so what I'd suggest is, this is a collection. I went back over a year and a half worth of meetings and notes and such, and put together this. And actually, Nadine, actually, I could share my screen because I added a couple things from this
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
So yeah, actually, I'm just thinking about that. Let me go to the that. Ooh, sorry, I'm not as adept at Teams. Give me a second here. There you go. Share. All right, you'll see my calendar real quick. It's pretty messy. All right, can you see the document now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, I think just basically these are, I try to categorize them as well. and the sub bullets aren't necessarily different points. It might be a point and then some evidence or a reference. So I'm just going to orient you to the document. But I think one of the key things is we have to find a sponsor, to sit down with and talk through. Be better if we can find a couple of folks that would be willing to work with us. But so again, these are all pulled from previous conversations, notes, and reviews. So
Good, John, can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah.
Because I just realized, technically this doesn't have to be part of our report at the end of the year, because we do need to sit down with Hillary.
Mhm.
Hillary Ruley is our chief city solicitor and the person who's the city's legal person that we're supposed to talk to.
Yeah.
To understand, so that we all understand the process for making regulations, because some of them are just regs that we can
Mhm.
change, and
Right.
some of these require legislation to change the code. So if you can orient us to your document, John, I'm not even going to push for us to try to resolve any of this, but I do want to say we are technically only required to meet twice a year for the next 4 years. I'm going to ask if we can, as John orients us to this document, like actually look through this document and then agree to a meeting time when we can come back with Hillary Rule to actually talk about the meat of the substance.
That's great. Yeah, no, it's a really good point, Charlie, about the understanding what's the difference. And then we might be prohibited from, I mean, some of these things may just be counter to law, and we can't actually put some of these things in. So all that would be very helpful. So the just the way it's oriented, it's in no particular order. It's just sort of how I wrote it down and what I uncovered. So there was a comment on audits, right? Do we need an audit particularly for a special particular type of audit for candidates that withdraw, campaigns that withdraw? Recount provisions. There was some data information in the agenda, the internal agenda that Charlie shared with some more details. I did not bother to put those in this document as well, but there's an issue, right? That candidates in the fund can't actually pay for the recounts. So can we say that, well, benefit of being in the fund is you don't pay for a recount, that's on the city, right? Since for the most part it's city money that's going in to the account and then coming back out and paying the city for the recount. So candidate withdrawal, there's a number of things we talked about around that during the process. Similarly, clarifications around endorsements. Then qualifications. This is probably, I would say, the most important one from a fairness perspective. Like, we need to make it easier for independent candidates to run for office and access the funds straight up. And right now it's not. It's prohibitive because of the timing of the qualification. So campaign coordination. I don't know that we had any real issues with that. We did a little bit with the two mayoral candidates, one in, one out of the program, but I think we need to be more clear about it. Howard County legislation is very clear about campaign coordination. Pretty much says none, except if both campaigns are in the fund. Penalties. We have some penalties, but we have some non-compliant folks. Whether it's for reporting or for returning funds or whatever, there should be, I think, substantive things to dissuade people from getting in if they don't think they can get out appropriately, right? Again, Howard County had a provision that you could be liable for a lot of money, and then there'd be a special exception process if a person didn't qualify, who didn't have the funds to repay for whatever reason, but it was pretty severe. Some conversation around existing campaign accounts, in terms of use and transferring funds in the city match. There was some conversation early on about being a little bit more explicit about prohibited uses of funds. Can the commission have authority to change distribution amounts? For example, if we see that we're running out of money or we're concerned about it, can we make adjustments before the finance department determines there's no funds available? That sort of thing. So you can read those. This in-kind contributions from central committees, this came up previously, that it seems to be basically prohibited in ours, but in other jurisdictions, not so much. There's a little bit of allowing in-kind distributions. And then, let's see.
It says 10 basically about the general election.
What?
And not the primary.
It probably would be, except there could be a situation where there's a candidate running in the primary who's an outlier, and the party wants to support their candidate.
Watch your guitar.
So, Anwar, you're. I didn't think you were calling me babe, but you might want to mute.
Sorry, trying to
No, that's
wrestle with two
all right.
kids here. Sorry.
Gotcha. No worries. I was, I was embarrassed a little bit, but no, it's not for me. But in any event, so I think there could be a situation in the primary where the central committee really wants to bolster an internal candidate, as opposed to somebody, running under the party flag, but not part of the party. Expanding the scope of individuals who can provide larger. This is like the family thing, right? It's only specified one. This is another, I think, easy fix and also a fairness issue, right? There's no reason why we can't expand that, because I think it's only spouses now. It's not fair to people who aren't married. So, commission funding. Oh, that's the last three are from today. Commission funding, survey requirement, and dedicated funding sources. Right. So I think the last one is really not. I'm going to take the last one out. That we can make our recommendation there. So that's that. So I'll recirculate this version with a couple of additions. I made a couple of probably language changes, but yeah, we can go from there.
Okay.
And I agree with your plan, Charlie, to try and set a time to get with the legal counsel, and that would be a closed meeting, right? Because we're asking for legal advice. Yeah.
Yes. So what we can do is reach out to. Well, I'll ask Nadine to navigate trying to get Hillary sometime in. Does February work for you guys?
I was going to suggest February. Yeah.
Okay. So sometime in February to meet with Hillary. Then you don't have to meet again for many months. Probably we probably would want to meet again in the fall to make a recommendation for funding if our, another annual funding recommendation for FY 27.
Right.
So,
and also, since we do have a new council term starting, as hot topics happen, can we not do a public meeting, just off the record meeting, and who can make it, and who can't, just so we can query and come to a consensus on how we should respond? Okay.
Yes.
But the official charter meetings, we can just set as that. Okay.
Well, it would be a war. Yeah, we're entitled to go into closed session.
Okay.
I mean, but likely it would be if we didn't have quorum, and like you said, it doesn't become an official meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else on the agenda? Thank you, John. You're going to circulate that again. And Nadine will follow up with us for some dates in February. God, I can't believe we're talking about February already.
No. Let's see, where's my, here we go. Yeah, I think, thank you, John. I think he touched on all of the issues that were posted that we learned about during our first cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Term limits, delinquent funds, change of meeting schedule, the potential hearing call.
Yeah, if there's anything that I missed, by all means, I know we talked a lot of different issues over the last year and a half, 2 years. So I most certainly could have missed something. So
Got it.
As soon as we know the information about our terms, because none of us technically know when we started or when we finished, that I just want to say that I agreed to be the chair when we only had when we didn't even have a quorum, just so we could move forward. And now uh, I I am happy to relinquish this. And if someone else or other people are interested in stepping up into leadership, I will be your dutiful assistant. Just because I don't want folks. Most of you weren't hadn't been sworn in when I was asked to take over as the chair, and so I want it to be a democratic process of electing somebody to lead us. I don't want folks to assume that I'm going to go forward in this. So I'm like honored to be with all of you incredibly smart people, talented, thinking, questioning people. So anyone.
I just move that you stay on in place, Charlie, as chair. So
Tracy is just like, don't tap me.
yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I don't do even have the
I
process.
second that.
And I would reach out to Hillary right away and make sure you stay in that seat. Your time starts tomorrow.
That's right. It was all.
That one I'll get to her right away.
I'm here until we can make sure we did our diligence and got our recommendations in, and nobody can listen. I don't want Fox 45 reporting on how we are misspending public funds. So
going to either whether we do it or not.
We're gonna dot every I and cross every T over here.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else? New business or anything for the good of the order?
No.
Happy holidays.
Yes.
Well, and anything in between, if you don't have time, shoot it my way. In between meetings, shoot it my way. I'm here to assist you in any way, support that you need. I will be updating the website. We thought we were going to have a new website format, but again, it's been delayed contractually, had nothing to do with us. But what I will do, I will draft, there's a nice section called About Us that is blank at this point. And so what I'd like to do is draft all of our accomplishments, what we do, what our largest tasks were, and the successes of the program, and then send it to everybody to put their edits on and then post it to our website. That's what Tech has asked me to do.
Sounds good.
All right.
So, Nadine, I want to thank you for shepherding us through this 2 years or this year. Really you had your work cut out for you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I do enjoy working with all of you, and I'll bring the cannolis at our next
Ooh,
in person again. Thank you
Great.
thank you for your support, your patience, my learning curve, and I'm still learning. So, and I hope we all continue together into 2025. I really do.
Or forever. Maybe these terms will never end.
Wait a minute. Wait a
It's
minute.
a lifetime commitment. We didn't know.
Charlie.
Well,
Madam Chair for
everyone,
life.
congratulations, Sam, on a beautiful baby. Everybody, I want to wish you a really, really special holiday season filled with joy. Find joy in these could be dark times that are headed our way. Find joy. And have a very happy holiday season.
thank you.
To you.
Thank you,
To
everyone.
everybody.
Happy holidays.
Everybody.
Happy holidays.
All the best. Bye now.
Stay well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Nadine, you have a really wonderful